there, welcome back. Today I have a big old stack of library books that I would like to show you, and I thought we could tap on them. The stack is heavy. And do some tracing and a little bit of reading and just have a fun little library-inspired hangout. So I'm going to put down my giant stack of library books there just for a moment. I love going to the library, and I always have, ever since I was a little girl. I always found the library to be a very magical place, and I definitely remember getting ASMR at the library. So, I don't really know why I've never done a video with any of my library books. I'm going to choose one here, get the tapping going. I did a video at the library tapping on books on the shelves and doing a bit of whispering, which was fun. And I do think that library books in particular, hardback library books that have these plastic book cover protective covers on them, they make such good sounds. They have that kind of little stickiness to them, but not too much. And I just think that is a really nice and very unique sound. So thank you, library books. So these just happen to be the books that I have out from the library right now. And I've had these for a while, and it is time to return them. And so I was down to the wire if I wanted to use these particular books in a video. And I had thought about doing a librarian roleplay with these books, because one of you suggested that, and I love that idea. So I will at some point definitely do a librarian roleplay. I think that would be fun. But when I sat down to do this today, I was like, I just want to be me today. I didn't have the wherewithal for a roleplay. I put a lot of oomph into that Velma roleplay, so now I have to charge up again. That was really fun to do. But it is just I have to get into a different kind of zone, to kind of act like that, whereas, when we're just hanging out, right? So I can just, be really relaxed enjoy this time with you. So the first book here in my library book haul is a book of poetry, and it is called Map, M-A-P, and it is the collected and last poems of Wislawa Zymborska. And I don't know for certain that I am pronouncing her name properly. I hope that I am. And she received the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1996. I knew it was in the 90s. She was born in 1923 and she died in 2012. She was born in Poland and worked as a poetry editor, translator, and columnist. And I decided to check this book out from the library because it was recommended to me by a very dear friend of mine who always gives me wonderful poetry recommendations. So thank you to him. And this was indeed a wonderful recommendation. And I think I'll just read you the first one of the little reviews that is on the back here because I think it describes her very well. It says, extremely smart, witty, and level-headed, Zymborska seduces us with her wide range of interests, her atypical lack of narcissism for a poet, and her cheerful pessimism. And that's what I like about these poems is I really, really like poetry. My favorite kind of poetry, I guess, is poetry that is based in sort of real life, day-to-day human experience, and that then draws out the deeper meaning and the deeper symbolism and just the deeper feelings in those everyday moments. And she does that really beautifully. And the poems are funny and, very inspiring, even though in a lot of instances she's writing about war and the aftermaths of war, and she's writing about difficult life subject matter, but she sees it through a lens that is hopeful and that recognizes the beauty in simple everyday things. So I highly recommend this book. It is a hefty tome for a poetry book, but it's because it contains several of her published books of poetry within it, and then some additional things that had not been published before. And I did mark a poem in here that was one of my favorites. I mean, it was hard to choose to read to you. I mean, this is a prolific book of poetry, and you might think like, oh my gosh, I'd never get through a book of poetry that big, but the poems are so wonderful that you can really just pick it up anytime, and you won't tire of it. Okay, this was the poem that I had selected for us, and it's just so delightful. It is called Some People Like Poetry. Some people. That means not everyone. Not even most of them only a few. Not counting school, where you have to, and poets themselves, you might end up with something like 2 per 1,000. Like. But then you can like chicken noodle soup, or compliments, or the color blue, your old scarf, your own way, petting the dog. Poetry. But what is poetry anyway? More than one rickety answer has tumbled since that question first was raised. But I just keep on not knowing, and I cling to that like a redemptive handrail. Isn't that lovely? So, some people like poetry. And then she breaks down that detail. I just love the structure of that one. And I think it's really fun. Let me see. What else? Oh, I wasn't going to read this one, but I hadn't meant to, but this is a short one, and this was one of the first poems of hers that I saw when I just looked her up online before I had actually gotten the book. This is a great poem. The 3 oddest words. When I pronounce the word future, the first syllable already belongs to the past. When I pronounce the word silence, I destroy it. When I pronounce the word nothing, I make something no non-being can hold. And I'll read this one as well. A note. Life is the only way to get covered in leaves, catch your breath on the sand, rise on wings, to be a dog or stroke its warm fur, to tell pain from everything it's not, to squeeze inside events, dawdle in views, to seek the least of all possible mistakes. An extraordinary chance to remember for a moment a conversation held with the lamp switched off, and if only once, to stumble on a stone, end up drenched in one downpour or another, mislay your keys in the grass, and to follow a spark on the wind with your eyes, and to keep on not knowing something important. So that is just a sampling of the beautiful poetry of Wislawa Zymborska. And I just really enjoyed this book. And I love the blessing of interlibrary loan, that I could just go on to my library website and request this specific book. And since my library didn't have it, they requested it from another library in their network, and it was brought to my library for me. And I mean, I don't know, that makes me feel sort of like a princess, that, I have a courier bringing me the books that I want to read. So, I don't know. Maybe I make too big of a deal out of little things, but I just really, really appreciate the library. And I really appreciate poetry and the joy and the comfort that it brings me. So, this is our first library book. And I mean, this is a lovely spine, so how can I not trace this one? Okay, so book number 1. You'll have to tell me which of these books you think sounds the best. Okay, the next book that I have here is a slightly different shape and size hardback book, and it does not have the plastic cover on it. We'll see how that sounds. And I think I have mentioned in a few videos that I've been taking classes in herbalism using wild plants to make medicine and using culinary herbs to their full advantage of flavor and health benefits. So this is a book that I checked out of the library and really enjoyed, called Recipes from the Herbalist's Kitchen. Delicious, nourishing food for lifelong health and well-being. And it is by Brittany Nickerson. And I love checking cookbooks out of the library. This is one of 2 cookbooks we have in this haul. And so I'm just always looking for new ones to check out. And because this one was specifically connected to herbalism, I thought it would be really interesting. And I enjoyed it a lot. It has some good recipes for, actual dishes that you can make and how to utilize herbs in a lot of everyday cooking. And it also has some basic medicine making techniques for how to make medicinal honeys and syrups and tinctures and things like that from herbs, which is a lot of what I'm learning in my class. And she also just has some really good sections in it about food and our attitudes around food and eating, and how hard we can all be on ourselves sometimes around eating. And she just takes a really nice view of things. I'll see if I can flip through this a little bit for you, because it really has a lot of beautiful photography in it of plants and food. And so, like I said, it has the recipes, and then they're sort of organized by theme of different benefits they might have for you. Here's a recipe for sage honey, which is something that I made some of this year before I even had gotten this book, because I have a lot of sage in my garden. And so I infused some of it in honey, and now I have this wonderful sage honey that I will use in the winter when I have a sore throat, or, I'm feeling a little under the weather. And herbalism is just such a fun, oh, that looks good. There's a recipe for naan with herbs, because, working with herbs can be as simple as just, putting some dried herbs in your cooking, or, buying a bunch of, basil or parsley and chopping it up and putting it on top of your food. I mean, that is herbalism. And then it can also be complex and fun if you want it to be. Okay, these are more... Ooh, those are flax seeds, I think. Baked sweet potato with peanut sesame aioli. That sounds good. Tap on some fries here. You know, I just think that herbalism is very cool because you can kind of, you can choose your entry point. You know what I mean? You can keep it really simple. And then as you get interested in more things, you can experiment with more things. There are some roast carrots with Dijon and parsley. It's one of my favorite things to do is to roast carrots and other root vegetables with lots of herbs. Oh, this is a recipe I really want to try in this. I'm going to write this recipe down in this book. I think I will probably buy. That's another reason I love checking out cookbooks from the library, because I scope them out, see if I think there's enough in them that I would actually use, and then decide if I want to buy them or not. So I think this one is a winner, and I've gotten very selective in the books that I buy these days. So this is an extra testimonial, but I really want to try making this a rosemary olive oil tea cake. I've been on a huge rosemary kick because I have a rosemary plant that I brought inside. It was growing on my porch all summer, and I brought it inside, and so far I've kept it alive. And rosemary is difficult to keep alive inside, so I'm going to keep cooking with it while I can. Look at that beautiful, beautiful spread there. Trace this beautiful picnic table spread for you. So yes, this book is lovely just because of the photography. As well, if you just want to get inspired about delicious fresh food. And sometimes, you know, when you don't feel like cooking, that can be one of the nice things that a cookbook gives you, is just that jolt of color and reminder that food can really be lovely for the senses, and that's how it should probably be approached for maximum enjoyment. So, I enjoyed this book, which helps you connect to the healing power of your food. And like I said, I liked it a lot because she wasn't giving you a bunch of rules or anything. If anything, she was encouraging you to break whatever rules you may have been adhering to and just really listen to your body and listen to your own intuition instead of health advice from other people. So I thought that was very valuable and wise. Okay, so that is library book number 2. Hadn't really thought about holding these up and the weight of them, and you'll see with the next one that might be a challenge. It might be a quicker one. So. Okay, book number 2, recipes from the Herbalist's Kitchen. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the other cookbook because it's huge. I'm going to hoist this up here. I knew this would have a good sound. I knew it would be worth hoisting this up to the microphone. This is the Superfun Times Vegan Holiday Cookbook. Can't can't even hold that up long enough to trace it off. I've got a better grip now. Entertaining for absolutely every occasion by Chandra, Moskowitz. And Chandra Moskowitz is my cookbook hero, and I learned to cook from her cookbooks back in the day when I was first out on my own in the world. And even though I am not currently a vegan, I love her recipes. As a plant-based person, you know, if you eat mostly vegetarian, even if you're not vegan, I find that vegan cookbooks and recipes and blogs and things just have the best vegetable-based recipes. So I would say that, I don't know, the majority of cooking that I do is vegan, just by nature, because I eat a lot of vegetables. And so I have many of Isa's cookbooks, including the original Vegan with a Vengeance, which I first learned to cook from. And she has a whole collection of amazing cookbooks, focusing on everything from brunch to a series of specialty cookbooks for vegan cupcakes, cookies, and pies. She has a Veganomicon, which is another prolific tome, and she's just wonderful. And I when I was first learning to cook, I used to frequent the post-punk kitchen message boards, old school, early 2000s message boards. And I learned a lot about cooking from the people on those message boards. So I'm really grateful to Chandra and that whole kind of like DIY vegan, I don't know, like alternative thing that was going on in the early 2000s. And it was all about making the most delicious, homey, comforting vegan food. It was a good time. It was a good time to be coming of age in the kitchen, I will say, and set a good foundation for me. So I had seen that she had come out with this cookbook a few years ago, and I just had to check it out, right? Because it has super fun times in the title. And so she's not lying. She's got recipes in here for lots of different holidays. I mean, I think it's a bit of a stretch to say for absolutely every occasion, because, you know, she can't represent all cultures and all traditions, but let's see. So you can see here is the table of contents, and she does indeed have many occasions and holidays represented here. New Year's, Super Bowl, Chinese New Year, Valentine's Day, Mardi Gras, Oscars party, St. Patrick's Day, Easter, Passover, Cinco de Mayo, Mother's and Father's Days, 4th of July, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, and Christmas. One thing that surprised me was that she didn't have a birthdays chapter in here, you know, like with birthday cakes and things in it. But she did sort of arrange it so it does sort of have sections like Super Bowl party is really like appetizers, and Mother's and Father's Day is brunch, and so you kind of, you know, can get to know her holiday code if you're looking for a certain type of recipe. Okay, I wanted to resituate myself there. So this one is a little tricky to even really like hold up and show you things out of, but I will pick some fun things. Okay, here are some pink grapefruit cupcakes. That sounds good. Since it was just Halloween, I did want to show you in her Halloween section. She did have some cute little things like pizza ghost faces and monster mash shepherd's pie, which is mashed potatoes with avocado in it, or peas, I think, in it, mashed into it to make it green, mounded up to look like a monster. So I thought that was pretty cute. And she has like homemade vegan candy corn in here, to which she credits the recipe to Alton Brown, which she veganized. Ooh, there is a cream of porcini mushroom soup. We're into Thanksgiving now. Caramelized onion and cauliflower casserole. Pumpkin cornbread. That looks really good. That was something I was going to say I had made. I've been making a rosemary cornbread, which has been delicious. And, you know, some good old mashed potatoes there. Okay, friends, I think I'm going to give up because this book is too heavy for me to hold up and show you. So we'll just end up with these candy cane fudgy cookies because they look delicious. Okay, I will just close the book and we know, Isa, that you will help us to celebrate all year long. Okay, so this was another example of like, I got this from the library and I'm like, oh, I don't know, do I really want to like make an investment of this much weight in my book collection? So I'll have to decide. This was a really fun book to look through. And I did copy down a couple of recipes, but I don't know that, ooh, look at that, biscuits and white pepper gravy, remembering that all of this is vegan. Okay, here I am picking it back up again and asking for trouble. A chocolate yogurt bundt cake, gotta love a bundt cake. Ooh, cauliflower tikka masala, that looks really good. Okay, maybe I do need to through this more before I take it back to kind of make a final rating decision. But in general, you can't go wrong with any of Chandra and Moskowitz's cookbooks. They're all very well written recipes that are easy to follow, and she is really funny, and she knows what's going to be worrying you when you're doing a recipe. She'll be like, don't worry if this does that, or that's okay. And so she's a very comforting cookbook author. So thanks, Isa, and you can see these cute pictures of her being festive. So okay, I'm going to put that one down. And fortunately, the last books that I have to show you, it is a little set of 3 books, but they are quite light. So here's yet another kind of book, another sort of texture of book. We have a paperback book that also has, does this have an extra? Yeah, this does have a little bit of an extra protective, clear, like plastic covering over it. So, oh yeah, that's a nice sound. And you know, Manga, I know I'm going the wrong way. Manga makes an especially nice sound and probably visual trigger. Haven't really done any ASMR with manga before. This video is so random, but that's kind of what I wanted to do today. I had thought about trying to do something more structured, and I couldn't get into it today. I said I have to be random and rambly. So, these are volumes 11 through 13 of Bleach by Tite Kubo, and I am properly obsessed with this series. I have watched the anime series of it through several times. It is definitely my favorite series. I have a handful of manga and anime series that are my favorites. And I just love Bleach because there are so many different characters and they each have their own special powers and their own ways that their powers manifest. And, you know, manga plots are always really challenging to try to summarize and talk about. Let me take just one of these. But basically, Bleach is the story of Kurosaki Ichigo. See if I can find a good... There's a nice picture of Ichigo looking very heroic in battle. And Ichigo is a human, and through a series of events, he is a human who is very connected to the spirit world. He can see ghosts, etc. And through a series of events, in order to save his family from being destroyed by a hollow, which is an evil entity, he ends up taking on the powers of a Shinigami, which is also translated as a soul reaper. And these are basically the beings who escort souls from the human world into soul society, the soul world, and ensure that they get there safely and protect them from these hollows who would like to have their evil ways with them. So that is a very simplified explanation, but Ichigo and some of his human friends who also end up gaining powers because of his connection to the spirit world, they end up traveling to Soul Society and getting into a lot of adventures there. I don't know, I hadn't really thought about the best way to show you these, but here on 11, volume 11, we have Abarai Renji. He is a fantastic character. They're all fantastic characters, and this is his sword, Zembimaru. And I wanted to look in here and see if I could find if Yorichi is in this one. I can't remember. These read so fast, like, you know, you can read these and, like, read one in an hour. So the next time when I go back to the library, I'm going to get a lot more of them. I'm going to check out more of them at once. She's not in that one. Let me see. And once they get into Soul Society, you get to know the hierarchy of the Shinigami, and there are 13 squads of the Shinigami, and each one has its own personality, and each one has a captain and a vice captain, who each have their own powers and their own swords, and you get to see a lot of cool battles between different characters. Let's see, on volume 12, we have Captain Aizen Sosuke, and, you know, I'm not going to say much more about the plot of these books, because if you would like to read them, I do not want to spoil anything for you, because they are fantastic. And then on volume 13, this is one of my favorite characters. He is one of my favorite characters. This is Zaraki Kenpachi. He is captain of the 11th squad, which is the most powerful fighting squad. And you can see he looks, pretty menacing and, pretty much like a bad dude. But my favorite thing, I think, about this series and about his writing is that characters are never, ever what you first expect them to be. For example, and this doesn't give anything, major away, but Zaraki Kenpachi is a very ruthless warrior, and he loves to fight, and he loves to fight to the death, and yet he would never harm anyone who was helpless or vulnerable, and he actually has a little sidekick who is his vice captain, who has been traveling with him for years, who is a little girl. And you can see her here. And so they just have a really neat relationship, that he's this, super tough guy, and then has this little girl that, he protects and she protects and takes care of him in different ways. So there's Yorichi. There's exactly what I wanted. That's exactly how I wanted to wrap this up. There's a nice little shot, a nice little frame of Yorichi the cat, who my cat is named after. And we're actually just getting to the part in the series where you find out that there is more to Yorichi than meets the eye. And I guess I should say that, I've watched the anime several times, but I had never read the mangas all the way through. And so I decided to start at the beginning and get them from the library and go through that process. I think there's 80-something of them, but they read so fast, and I figured that would be a good little project for the winter. So, thank you for hanging out here with me and my library books. I feel like I was awkward in showing them to you, so I'll have to think more about how I want to do that in future book videos. So, you can let me know if there's a way that you like to see book content. But let's do a little tapping test to wrap up, okay? I guess I'm going to trick you. I'm going to do these backwards in the order that I showed them to you. So first we have the Bleach manga. This is Captain Koraku. I always have a hard time remembering his name, but I just remember him as the laid-back captain who wears a pink kimono. Okay, this is the manga tapping. And then we have the super duper thick hardback cookbook tapping. And then we have the slightly less thick, wider, different kind of cardboard tapping. So we'll call this the flat cookbook. And maybe sometime I should do a video just of all the book sounds and no talking, but it's really hard for me to do videos with no talking. It is so my natural tendency to ramble. Okay, so flat herbal cookbook. And then we'll come back to our poetry book that we started with, which, like I said, I do think this is a magical sound. Of the library book. Thank you for hanging out with me. I hope this was relaxing for you and just helps you wind down a little and feel a little bit of calm and feel a little bit of warmth and coziness coming through to you from me. So maybe go curl up with a nice book. Take good care of yourself. Rest well. And I'll see you again